And there Australia had the luck on the toss to take first innings, which is sweet even if you don't show it. But Bill Lawry made use of it. And after Australia had lost 2 wickets at 29, he went on imperturbably and steadied the innings. The young men may come and go, but he maintains his steady way. He's all angles, and he doesn't look an elegant batsman. But he goes on after the others have gone. And he carried Australia past the crisis produced by John Snow of 29 for 2 and into security. This was the time for his young men, for all their tentative starts to the tour, to stand up and be counted. First Walters, gradually growing into the English scene, helped in a stand of 144. And then, after Lawry was out, and must still be kicking himself for it, Sheehan, Walters and Chappell carried on. Sheehan playing with the smooth pendulum of the bat of the pure stylist. Chappell, a man with cricket in his blood, busy and determined. They were still there at the end of the day, and they'd brought Australia to the prosperity of 319 for 4. The next day was cold, bleak and grim, but for England it had some cheer. In the morning, the Australian innings concertinaed under a sacrificial run-out and the bowling of Snow, Higgs and D'Oliveira. All out for only another 38 runs. Then, in poor light and between stoppages, Edrich and Boycott made a cautious and not very enjoyable way to 60 before they came off an hour early for bad light. Saturday's cricket decided the match. England didn't bat very well, but the excitement of the day and the decisive factor of the match, and as it proved the rubber, lay in Australia's out cricket. Cowper was coolly accurate and subtle. Mackenzie, splendidly and athletically fast. Connolly, grimly economical. And in their support, the young men were eager and magnificent. In the crowd's solitary spell of drama and fun of the day, John Snow saved the follow-on, if in fact Australia wanted it. But otherwise, England simply faded away. Australia, in face of some aggressive bowling by Snow, batted resolutely but slowly. Only 165 runs came off 100 overs all day long. But they built their lead to 252 by the evening. On Monday, in a blaze of sunshine, Australia established a complete winning position. But there was an outstanding performance on each side. First, it all went Australia's way, with Cowper all calm and competence. And at the other end, Walters growing up for the first time in England to his full stature. He looked a natural batsman, all rhythm and unforced power. Jarman, with hearty common sense, made some forthright runs with him. But all the time, Pat Pocock, the Surrey off-spinner, 21 years old, was producing the best bowling performance of his Test career. Length and line and flight and spin, and 6 good wickets for 79. But at the end, Australia set England 413 to win, more than any side has ever made in the 4th innings to win a Test match. The start was all attack, Mackenzie bowling to a Carmody field, and Boycott playing strokes which said that England didn't think the task beyond them. But at 13, Mackenzie was the crucial fraction too fast for Boycott. And at 25, he found a perfectly pitched late outswinger for Cowdrey. Edrich and Graveney, the last of England's major batsmen, played securely. But when their partnership was broken and the unhappy Amos was out for his second duck of the match, then even the optimists accepted the certainty of England's defeat. All England could hope for on the last day was to salvage some self-respect. And Barber and D'Oliveira did that. Barber batting intelligently, and D'Oliveira playing an innings of calm judgment and controlled aggression. There were times during the morning when it seemed that Pocock might stay with him while he scored a century. But Gleeson killed that thought, and Bill Lawry, in his first test as a touring captain, had led Australia to win the first test of the series. A situation from which England have never recovered to win a test series in England in all test history. Lords, and the 200th match between England and Australia. It wasn't perhaps hospitable of England to win the toss and bat, but they probably thought it was their turn. They lost Edrich in half an hour before the rain reminded us that it's part of English cricket history, and often a maker of it too. For it stirred the wicket to such anger that the ball spat up at the batsman. Boycott lent on his studious technique, and Milburn once struck with splendid power. Before the shattering hailstorm, which broke over the ground and first turned it into a winter landscape and then flooded it so that even the next day's play seemed doubtful. But the Lord's pitch recovered to an amazing firmness for some memorable cricket. Milburn announced himself in his first over. And he went on to play an innings to warm the heart. Not reckless, he was content to defend against the good ball, but he hit anything hittable with all the power of those huge forearms. And when Cowper, who'd been so successful at Old Trafford, came on, he greeted him violently enough to rattle any bowler. It all looked so simple and so mighty. And Boycott, in his wisdom, was content to play the quieter part. There could be no two reactions to Colin Milburn's innings, only disappointment when it ended as it had progressed in an attacking stroke. It was never quite the same again. But soon Cowdrey was playing with the unhurried ease of the great batsman, correct as the textbook and sometimes masterly. And Barrington was going his usual workmanlike way, building an innings piece by piece. The statisticians noted that Cowdrey scored his 2000th run against Australia, and so, soon afterwards, did Barrington. All seemed to be going well, if slowly, for England, when the Australian pace bowlers, with an access of fire, changed everything. Gravely was out to a glorious catch. And Barrington went off with an injured finger. So Knight and Knott were left to play out the day for such profit as they could muster. So to Lord's Test Saturday, the great occasion of the English cricket year, and the disappointment of so many who'd come so eagerly. The batsmen made a few appearances in intervals of the drizzle, but the sum total of it all was 13 overs in 3 bleak, brief periods. 2 more wickets, only 37 runs, and the chance of a finish almost washed away. Monday was a little but crucially clearer. Less than 2 hours were lost to that plague of the summer, which once more implanted devilry in the pitch. The English bowlers made the ball move off the seam, and their fieldsmen supported them magnificently. Walters countered manfully, but of the other Australian batsmen, only Gleeson reached double figures. The Lord's Test is cricket's royal occasion, and even the rain respected it. Jarman, hurt while keeping wicket, came into bat and took his first ball from no spiteful length straight on the old injury. The English bowlers, especially Brown, were in their natural element, and they cut down the innings for 78. But they followed on with a new competence and determination. It might be said that the English bowlers were no longer fresh, but any bowler's fresh if he's taking wickets, and the fact is that Laurie, as everyone always expects, was immovable. And Redpath, for his part, stood a foot taller than he'd done in the first innings. The pair of them saw Australia safely down to the end of the day. Both sides knew that everything depended on Tuesday morning, and the rain took Tuesday morning. In fact, it took more than half the scheduled playing time of the match. England had just as much time left as they'd taken to bowl out the first Australian innings. But this time, though Laurie went early, Redpath stayed, and Cowper, with characteristically cool common sense, stayed with him until the danger was staved off. True, after Redpath went, Underwood whipped out Walters, and Sheehan looked much less than happy. But time had already made Australia safe. And though Cowdrey ringed their batsmen round with close catchers, a fantastic field for a slow bowler, Chappell clear-mindedly and firmly batted down to the end of a draw, which even the most partisan Australian will admit to be ill luck for England. A draw, but memorable as Milburn's match. The first day of the third test at Edgbaston was swept into limbo, and it was Friday before Boycott and Edrich, in their different fashions, set about the business of giving the English innings a sound foundation. They'd made 80 before Gleeson, as artful and skillful a spinner as Australia had had for years, got Boycott out with a ball which went straight on through a sweep stroke. And then there was Cowdrey, applauded all the way in, from on the field as well as off it, now becoming the first man ever to play in 100 test matches. Soon Boycott was back as Cowdrey's runner, but Edrich was superbly caught by Tabor. He'd done his job well. Barrington, for a man who'd only just come in, got all too good a ball from Freeman. And Cowdrey and Graveney had the innings on their hands, with Gleeson harassing them as accurately and resourcefully as ever. They grew into the innings together. Cowdrey, for all his injured leg, struck the ball with his sweetest timing, and Graveney matched him through the offside arc of cricket's loveliest strokes. A rich last hour saw England end the second day, which in effect had been the first, with Cowdrey only a little short of his century, in a score which some critics thought too low, but for a side carrying 5 major bowlers, it was reassuringly near to safety. And the next day, there was an encouraging crowd to watch them, as first Cowdrey, looking less anxious than his friends felt, and still with the running assistance of Boycott, came slowly but fittingly to 100 in his 100th test match. After that, the innings lost its way. Even Graveney slowed down and missed his century. And it wasn't until Snow and Underwood decided to have some fun for the last wicket that anyone batted as if they realized that the first day had been lost. Still, England could call 409 a safe total, if it was safety they wanted. The Australian innings had a dramatic beginning. In the first over, the fifth ball leapt and hit Laurie's hand. He played the sixth and, dour man that he is, left the field in pain. He'd fractured a knuckle. When at 10, Brown bowled Redpath. England, with Graveney taking over as captain from the injured Cowdrey, must have recalled Lords and had thoughts of Australia following on. But the resistant Chappell, promoted to meet the emergency, and Cowper, efficient as ever, had quite different ideas. They batted on to Monday morning, past the 100. And though Snow found a good ball for Cowper, Walters settled with Chappell. Then Chappell was gone to a devil of a ball, and Sheehan was out. But Walters and Tabor saw away the possibility of the follow-on, and all seemed to be going gently and quietly after lunch, when suddenly the English spin bowlers, Illingworth and Underwood, found a little turn in the pitch. A little, but enough, and 5 wickets went down in half an hour, while only 9 runs were scored. Laurie couldn't bat. Australia were all out for 222, and England batted again, 187 ahead, and striving to pull further out in front as quickly as they could. Mackenzie, acting as captain in Laurie's place, bowled a mighty spell to hold them back. And Connolly put Boycott out. That let in Graveney. Full of purpose and strokes until he declared and set Australia 330 to win with 12 minutes batting that night. 12 minutes which Cowper and Redpath negotiated with care and skill. They batted on through Tuesday morning, too, looking eagerly for runs with a mind to win. Again, Chappell came in early to join a partnership with Cowper. Soon Graveney brought on his 2 spin bowlers, and the scoring rate dried up. Cowper didn't score for half an hour, but the resistance was still stern when, at 12:30, the rain grew heavier and the players came off. They didn't return, and yet another test had been spoilt by the rain of this cruel summer. Headingley was, as ever, the gathering of the faithful. Laurie wasn't fit. Jarman took on the Australian captaincy, won the toss and they batted. Snow bowled better than at any time in the series, and Inverarity in his first test didn't last long. But Cowper, allotted Laurie's responsibility to anchor the innings, stayed while Redpath, set free to be himself, played the attacking strokes that are his nature. Though he often played and missed, he rarely retrenched. Cowper had founded the innings before he was out. And Walters, with some difficulty and some charity from the English fielders, made a diligent contribution. Redpath chanced his arm and enjoyed his luck until, only 8 away from his first Test century, he played outside the off stump, and this time he didn't miss, but edged. Walters went. But the durable Chappell saw out the day. There wasn't much of the Australian innings except Chappell on the Friday. Brown and Underwood between them rolled it up, but not until it had reached a larger total than the English fieldsman should have allowed. Now came the best of England, not merely their highest opening of the series, but the most commanding. Edrich was reliable and acquisitive, while Roger Prideaux, in his first Test, grew from modesty to command, batted with poised judgment, first established his innings, and then challenged Australia for the initiative. He dealt firmly with Mackenzie. He hit off Freeman. And he reduced Connolly to purely defensive tactics. We thought in terms of a century in his first Test as he moved to attack Gleeson, when, not middling a sweep, he gave Freeman a catch so difficult it deserved to be as important as it proved. Dexter seemed to pick up Test cricket where he'd put it down 3 years before, but in the turning point of the innings, Jarman called on Mackenzie for his best, and Mackenzie gave it. Rising characteristically to the challenge of Dexter, he first pinned him down, and then, never relaxing his attack, broke through, and he tilted the innings. Graveney and Barrington were content to live out the day. Saturday was a day of heavy going. Barrington just missed his 50. Illingworth soon went. And when Snow was out, England had declined from 209 for 3 wickets to 241 for 9. When, to most people's surprise and everyone's delight, Underwood batted heartily, and Brown rendered him sensible support. Underwood found a defensive stroke for the good ball and a resounding no for anything less. Suddenly the whole scene seemed brighter, and the two had put on 61 for the last wicket by the time Brown was out. So Australia batted again, only 13 ahead. Soon Gravely brought on his spinners. Soon, too, Illingworth's flight and Knott's quickness brought a wicket. Inverary's was the only wicket to fall that night. Redpath and Walters put Australia 105 in front by 6:30. Then, on Monday, Australia truly defended the Ashes. There was a late start through rain and an early finish through bad light. In between, Redpath was out, Walters did his share, Whitechapel was again determinedly valuable. Sheehan weathered some troubles, but from time to time wickets fell and catches were held. Other chances, though, were missed. When Illingworth and Underwood had finished their work, England needed 326 to win, with 5 minutes less than 5 hours to make them. Soon the main battle was joined. Edrich worked his steady way along. Dexter at first played not only in full confidence, but also in full control, responsible as well as aggressive. The Australian response was entrusted largely to Mackenzie, who maintained high speed for long periods, and Connolly, accurate and lively from 1/4 until decision was all but final at 5:05. And above all, they were wonderfully supported in the field. This was the enduring excellence of the series on either side. And if Sheehan was outstanding as a ground fieldsman, others matched him in eagerness, and the catching was a class ahead of England's. For that alone, Australia deserved to keep the Ashes. And on this last day at Headingley, they were bent on keeping them. They might have attacked through the spin of Gleeson, but Jarman preferred to keep the game tight through pace. England were 61 at lunch, 265 wanted in 3.5 hours. Dexter was pinned down unbearably and at length rebelled against the curb and was out. Edrich forged grittily on, and Graveney played the flowing strokes that are his batting character. They made 53 together before Edrich's sturdy innings came to an end. Barrington took some risks. And Fletcher scored his first test runs in his natural style. But the tightly set and superbly manned Australian field had the last word. 137 to win in 85 minutes after tea was gradually made worse and then impossible, and the hunt was called off. Australia had held the Ashes. At last, high summer came to the cricketers and their followers for the 5th test at the Oval. Milburn was back for England, and so was D'Oliveira. Australia chose Ashley Mallett for his first test, and the two captains, Cowdrey and Laurie, were back. Laurie lost the toss, and England went to bat on an amiable oval pitch. Milburn announced himself thunderously. The Australians, though, set out to pin him down, did it, and bowled him. Dexter played another controlled innings. He was out playing for lunch. Cowdrey looked in form. But his was Ashley Mallett's first test wicket. Once more, it was Edrich who stayed. Only one English batsman, Dennis Compton, has scored more runs in an English home series against Australia than Edrich in this one. He knows just what he can do, and he does it extremely well. Edrich's chief partner was Tom Graveney, the easiest batsman of our time to watch. They made 125 together before Graveney was rather surprisingly out. So, D'Oliveira was in at the end of a solid, if not exciting, day for England. As Thursday had been Edrich's day, so Friday was D'Oliveira's. Looking as cool and unruffled as ever, he lifted England's scoring rate, not beyond the limit of safety, but healthily and steadily with his own particular range of strokes. Edridge's was the highest innings of the series. Then there was no one except Knott to stay for long with D'Oliveira. Wickets fell regularly at the other end, but D'Oliveira contrived enough of the bowling to play an innings of 158 before a full oval ground. The England innings, though, ended in security. Australia's began with a counter by Milburn, faster than he looked, to put out Inverarity. Laurie, no peep of light between bat and pad, kept the innings steady. At the other end, Redpath had a little luck, especially against snow. So to Saturday, another batsman's day, this time Bill Lawry's. From first thing in the morning to last thing at night, he was there. Once his eye was in, and it wasn't at the start against snow, he was the solid, safe, wise man. He must have been galled to have to stand and watch wickets fall so inexplicably at the other end. Certainly the pitch had nothing to do with 5 men being out for only 52 runs. Mackenzie, though, buckled to and stayed for an hour. His partner, Mallet, carefully and correctly found his feet for nearly an hour until the end of Saturday. Then, Australia were only 31 runs away from their first objective, avoiding the follow-on. On Monday morning, their position became suddenly and unexpectedly more precarious when, as nobody ever expects, Laurie was out. An inside edge off snow to Knott. So Mallet, chosen as a bowler, was left to justify himself as a test batsman, and he did. He and Gleeson, full of good country common sense, saw away the fear of the follow-on. And Connolly stayed for nearly an hour to score 3, his highest score of the series. And with Mallet, the last 2 wickets had endured for 55 runs in the best part of 2 hours. So England batted again under time pressure, 170 on with less than 10 hours left. They had to go quickly, and Milburn announced they would from the very first ball. Bill Lawrie first caught Milburn, and then, to the surprise of the experts, brought on Mallet opposite Connolly. Though, less surprisingly, he set defensive fields for both of them. One by one, the English batsmen set about keeping up a rate of a run a minute, and paid for it with their wickets. There was no major individual innings, but everyone made his contribution. They were all out at 5:45, leaving Australia 352 runs to win in 393 minutes. Just over half an hour to bat that night. Their main hope of achieving a win disappeared within moments. Laurie was out. Milburn again. In the last minute of the day, too, Redpath went. So the final day of the series began with the simple choice of issues, or it seemed simple, of Australia needing 339 runs and England 8 wickets in 6 hours. Even Underwood's remaining half over was difficult. Within moments, the redoubtable Chappell was out. There was a spot for the bowler from the Vauxhall end, and from time to time, Underwood hit it devastatingly. Cowdrey set an exaggeratedly attacking field. Inverarity, who'd so far had a disappointing summer, emanated soundness, and stylish soundness at that. When Sheehan was out at 110, the Australian tail was exposed. Jarman was in with Inverarity when, a couple of minutes before lunch at 86 for 5, the players went off for the first drops of a thunder shower which, in less than an hour, reduced the oval to a series of minor lakes. Thanks to the mass effort, play could start at 4:45, an hour and a quarter left, when Australia had no chance of scoring 266, and England wanted 5 more wickets. And it only seemed possible that they'd take them if the drying wicket misbehaved. It never did. It was too wet. Still, Cowdrey set an unheard-of field and shuffled through his hand of bowlers, hopefully, but with no advantage for 40 minutes. Then, D'Oliveira, his 5th bowler since play restarted, floated one past no stroke at all from Jarman and clipped away the off bail. Cowdrey whipped off D'Oliveira and brought Underwood back. Mallet got the one difficult ball of the after-rain period, and Brown, of the many about him, took the catch. Mackenzie simply didn't play carefully enough. David Brown signalled the dawning of England's hope. Gleeson stayed for a quarter of an hour, playing Underwood with a little luck and nice judgment, with his pad or his bat or not at all, until Cowdrey brought Underwood back to the old over-the-wicket line, and that was the end of Gleeson, abstaining. So Connolly came in, with 10 minutes and 1 wicket left. "5 minutes of unbearably tense cricket. Then, when it seemed that Inverarity must carry his bat, Underwood managed to half straighten one ball, and that was the end. England had tied the rubber. So the 1968 series, a series all too full of rain and frustration, had ended in sunshine and on a high dramatic note.